So what you're seeing is it's essentially Excel, because NodeXL is Excel. It's just Excel with a new ribbon. And in that ribbon are all the buttons that you're going to need to press in order to get those 5 things done. Where do I get data? Where do I put it in? How do I analyze it, or do that networky thing that you do to networks? How do I draw a picture of it, and how do I write a report that highlights the salient elements of it? It's all right there. The most important of these buttons is probably this one. It's called Automate. The Automate button is so powerful that I'm happy to say that one of the leading NodeXL instructors out there is Professor Katie Pierce at the University of Washington. She's been teaching a lot of people NodeXL, and she refuses to let them know that Automate exists for the first 4 weeks of the class, because in her opinion, it's just too easy. Now, as a software designer, I really like it when somebody describes my software as too easy. So with this, you are seeing a list of every operation that NodeXL is capable of doing. It is listed in the order that they should be done. And each of them have options. You can turn them on or off, and you can set all the options. And you're thinking, well, that's a lot of options. How am I going to do that? If you join us over at NodeXLGraphGallery.org. One of the features of NodeXL Graph Gallery is slow load time. And then, so here we have a recent map. It's California wildfires. I'm a little concerned. It's not that far from my house. But here is people talking about Northeastern. Let's go with that. We'll go with the local color. You're going to get a network map. Each of these dots is a Twitter user, and each of the lines is a relationship they created with another user, typically by replying or mentioning them. If you don't reply or mention anyone, you get a self loop. It's a tweet, which we think you talk to yourself, is the way it's represented in the graph. Those people are up here. These are the, I have a feeling this thing just eats laser, right? You can't actually, it just eats laser. I'm going to use this. These are isolates. These are people with 0 connections. They tweeted, but they never mentioned anybody else's name. Nobody mentioned their name either. So are they bad people? No, they are the proof that this topic is a brand. Because brands are things that people talk about without having to reply to somebody else. And so the fraction of isolates is an indicator of brandiness. There are other structures here. There's quite a number of them. They've been sliced into groups. The groups have been created by Fawcett, Newman, and Marc. All of that information is listed here. So we're going to tell you this is 9,625 Twitter users. It happened over 10 days. It's a duration of this duration. And these are the edges, and this is how we clustered it. And this is how we laid it out. Because someone's going to ask you that. Then we tell you who made it and what are the summary statistics. So these are just the network summary statistics, the overall metrics about your graph, how many edges, how many vertices, how many edges of different types, what's the reciprocated vertex pair ratio, how many single vertex connected components, those are your isolates. So you're getting a sense of the overall shape and structure of the graph. But then we offer you the 10 people who rank most highly on any metric you want, but the one I want is betweenness centrality. I'm a big fan. Betweenness centrality really reveals interesting and important people who are not necessarily high magnitude people. You can find small, bright things with betweenness centrality because it really is a measure of how much do you have monopoly reach to some part of the graph that nobody else has, which is interesting. And it tends to correlate with being in the middle of everything because you connect to everything, including the things that nobody else connects to, at least in practice. So here they are. There are people talking about Northeastern, and if your job is to, in some ways, influence the Northeastern conversation, how do we do that? The answer is you start by following these people, and God, I love recipes. I have a recipe. And maybe I'm be shown free soon. But you would follow these people, and then you could conceivably try to smart tweet them.
Can you explain smart tweet again? I know you did it before.
Can do, and we'll do it by looking at one. The idea of a smart tweet, and of all these features, is going back to the business decision maker, that's great, what do I do about it? This is the feedback I get constantly. Nobody wants to know anything just because they want to, it's interesting. It's, what do we do with it? And in this context, what people want is to amplify their voice. The thing about social media is that all may speak, but not all may be heard. So how do you get your voice heard? Our suggestion is different from the dominant approach, which is, I will get my audience. I will build the audience. I will become the mayor of my hashtag. Bad news for you, somebody else has already done it. Further, your domain probably is touched by 10, 15 different words, hashtags, phrases, topics. And you, if you really want to control or influence the perception of whatever it is, you kind of have to be in all 15. Can you be the mayor of 15 hashtags? No, you can't. And so why not be a friend of the mayor who is already there? And how do you make friends with the mayor? Well, certainly you're going to start by following them, but you probably are going to have to speak to them. You're going to actually have to have a human conversation, at least a partially human conversation. We're going to help you a bit by putting hashtags and words that have been mined out of the text from the graph to be the two most salient, which is to say high-ranking TF-IDF valued hashtags and words. So we treat hashtags and words separately, we rank them all by TF-IDF, we pick your two highest, we stick them in here, and I would cross out the words what's happening and replace it with the phrase, use these words in a sentence. Because what's going to happen next is that you're friends with Bill Clinton, and God knows what could happen after that. But let's try that with somebody a little, oh, well, Chelsea Clinton, see, they didn't even go here, did they?
They were here.
They were here, okay, but they're not alums. Right, okay, so.
There's an event involving the Clinton Foundation, hence the 3 different Clinton.
That explains a lot more about it, and I guess the event was the CQIU? Is that right, or CGIU? 2017.
Global Initiative, something.
Clinton Global Initiative, something, yeah. So what we would suggest is that you really want to use that phrase, Clinton Global Initiative, in this sense. If you want their attention, you're going to have to use their hashtag. So we give you their hashtag, but notice what's at the end. It says hashtag NodeXL in a URL. That's my hashtag, that's my URL. And so I have a metaphor to offer here. Plants and animals have relationships, right? And plants have a relationship with animals that is based on bribery. Plants don't have legs and they need seed propagation, and so they offer sugar or protein in exchange for transportation, and the world goes around. We are offering, something. We are offering attention in context to the right person, and in exchange, we would like seed propagation. And in the internet, that's basically a URL and a hashtag. If I can get somebody to retweet my URL and hashtag, I'm done for the day. I go home. I work at home. It's an easy trip. So this is really a way of leveraging the attention economy. People who are important will not simply give you their audience until a relationship is formed. And how do you form a relationship? You're going to have to follow them and actually talk to them about what they care about. So it's augmented, but it's not artificial. So that, I think, explains the smart tweet. Yeah. So, but we were talking about setting up all of those settings. Well, here are all of these attributes of the report. We're mining all of the URLs. We'll do the same with words. We'll do the same with word pairs. You can see the menu along the side here. It's URLs, domains, hashtags, words, word pairs, and then the who is getting a lot of traffic, who's getting replied to, who's getting mentioned, which we put at the end because we think that's less important than who is between, because that seems more important. So when we do this, we do not only report data at the graph resolution, because it is very important to us that, I'm going to go home button, let's see. If you look at the graph, I think you'll agree it's not just one network. It's not just that these guys are isolates. It's not just that there's only a few connected components here. These clusters, G1, G2, G3, Closet-Newman-Moore says they are separate subgraphs. And so when we identify a subgraph, we then also run all the content analysis at its resolution. And so what is the top hashtag in group 5? It's breaking left. It's, in G8 you're talking about Garth and Tricia. These are separate discussions, and they may be talking about Northeastern in a different context. It's not only the university. A lot of it is the university.
So all those are hashtags, not words, right? I mean, I want to make that distinction.
It's an option. You choose. These currently, I believe, looking at them, I think these are words. But there's a switch in the interface, and you can switch it to hashtags. You could also be URLs. It could be words and word pairs. So when we report the overall summary of words, word pairs, URLs, hashtags, we also report it at each of the group resolutions, which you would then see down here when you come over to top hashtags, and you'll see CGIU 2017, #1 hashtag, but not in group 1, and yes, in group 2, but not in group 3, and not in group 4. In fact, all of the traffic for that happened in, where was it? It's in group 2. So if we go back up to the...
So how are they grouped? The co-occurrence or?
Right, I'll show you. The answer to the grouping question is... There you go. The graph's vertices were grouped by cluster using the Closet-Newman-Moore cluster algorithm. There's Wachida and Sarumi, there's Gervin and Newman, there are 138,000 additional clustering algorithms out there. Why we pick these 3? Because Ben Schneiderman said they were pretty good, and we thought he knows. And he's right. I mean, we get demands for all sorts of additional features. We never get a demand for another clustering algorithm. If you want one, you let me know. So that's what sliced the graph into pieces. And you again, you get to choose. You get an option where if you wanted Wachida and Sarumi, which tends to create more smaller clusters, Gervin-Newman, which, best of my knowledge, generates pretty much the same as Closet-Newman-Moore, but more slowly, which is a feature for some people, not me, but So this gets us to see that different regions of the graph are talking about different things, and when you do this for controversial political topics, like, let's do it for soda tax. Just went down in flames in Chicago after success in Philadelphia and a few other cities. Oakland, Berkeley, they're charging a penny an ounce on sugary drinks. Who doesn't like that idea? The American Bottling Association. And who likes this idea? Every political operative who's going to get money from the American Bottling Association. And so we could, and you can, if you go to the graph gallery and type in soda tax, you'll see that we're mapping the word soda tax every week. And the clusters clearly become, first of all, geographic. This is the Chicago people, because they're going to argue with each other. And then these are the for and the against. You're either for the soda tax or against it. So you can really get some insights into what are they talking about, who are their leaders, what are they linking to, what other hashtags are co-occurring and relevant. And most important, I didn't get the end button. Oh, there you go. Function.
Control function.
Yeah. These 3 links at the very bottom of the page are very important to us, and I hope they'll be important to you. Link number 1, it's the data set in the NodeXL file. You download it, and you put it in a trusted directory, and you can now open up that data set. You can look at Northeastern data, you can look at all the rows and columns. You can even apply different layout algorithms. You could put a different recipe on it and come up with at least a different looking data set. All metrics are supposed to be exactly the same, but you can look at it. You can certainly zoom into, filter, and slice it in other ways. The second link, download the graph data as GraphML. I spent 10 years at Microsoft. Apparently Microsoft was not the most beloved company. Thankfully now Apple has jumped the shark and all the cool techie people now no longer want MacBooks. And that's good because it makes it easier for my product. But Windows. But what if you don't like Windows? What if you don't like Excel? XML, GraphML is perfectly fine, and we love the Gephi people. They're wonderful people. Why can't we interoperate with them? And we do. And so GraphML export means you can do your data imports in NodeXL, you do a bunch of calculations. And then, to be honest, if you compare the beauty of a Gephi graph to a NodeXL graph, Gephi wins. They're French, of course they've got style. I'm from Brooklyn, what would I know? So I give it up to them. But look, we're doing a slightly different thing, and the important thing is, where it can be done, we're gonna interoperate. We have no desire to be a data roach account. This is a way station, we do what we can for you in the Unity model. Third link, most important link, it's really going to be worth your time. If you're a NodeXL user, that link, this is going to be it. That is the settings options file for that graph. I like to refer to it as the recipe for your data. If you download this recipe, and I'm about to, there we go, I can now go into NodeXL, and I'm going to go to the Options Import menu, and I'm going to find the Downloads directory, and I'm going to find that there are my workbook options, and you've got a set from a little bit while ago, but I've got some new features I'm going to turn on. When we go back into Automate, look at how everything's got, all the right checkboxes are checked. And if we go down into this, you're going to see that, oh, there are options on things, and oh, wait a second, there are options on options. This could get really intense, right? And so if I have to turn on all of these options all the time, it's going to take a long time to learn the tool. But what if you don't have to learn all the options all the time? Then it won't take a long time to learn the tool. So you can do what I just did. You go to the graph gallery, you find a graph that kind of looks the way you'd like your data to look. You download the recipe. You import the recipe through the options import, and now you've got those options. So how do we put them to work? Let's do, here's an import, and we'll say, how about Clinton Global something initiative? Is that what it was? IU 2017. And it's probably plenty of tweets, so I'll let it run. So you're already authorized, which is cool. We're going to get 18,000 tweets. We're going to let it expand the URLs, because you know in Twitter you get t.co/something. You don't want that. You want it to say New York Times, or you want it to say Fox News. You don't, you know. So that button there expands it for you. So I'll let that go. When it is now going to Twitter, it's probably going to go all the way up to 180. I'm guessing. Oh, right. You know what? I don't think it's you. No, you know what? It's the screen's interface that's doing it. Yeah. So Twitter delivers data at a rate of 100 tweets per page. Maximum number of pages is 180, 18,000 tweets. Their rule. We do have a middleware tier available for NodeXL called the Connected Action Graph Server Importer for NodeXL, which essentially is a MySQL server that sits between you and Twitter. You tell it the 30 topics that are essential for your dissertation. We collect them every day through the Stream API, and we store all those JSON blobs for you. And then you go into the import menu and log into our server, and we'll give you 6 months of your dissertation data. Call me. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then when you find a job, we're going to charge you $80 per. But if you're, or if you have grant money. But if you're a graduate student, we don't charge you. So the idea here then is that you are able to get a graph, analyze, store it somewhere, analyze it, draw a picture of it, and write a report. And the report's going to tell some other person what was important about this graph as quickly as possible, getting straight to that thing. Yes, sir?
So can we see the evolving dynamics of this kind of cascade?
You can. I will have to open and this thing is about 1/3 of the way through data collection, and then it will have, of course, about 8 minutes of data processing, because it's going to end up with 18,000 tweets. It's then going to do every kind of analysis that we just saw listed there, right? All those graph metrics, all that stuff. But what I can do for you is, let's just go to the end here. I'm just going to download an existing workbook, and then we'll open that one while the other one is cooking. So we're going to do the Julia Child thing. There's a turkey in the oven already cooked. I don't think it's down there. Okay. So the answer to your question is we have a feature called dynamic filters, and it appears when we'll see the graph pane appear. And in dynamic filters, it essentially lists every numeric attribute of your edges and your vertices. And it presents them as a double-headed slider. You get the ability to, let's see if I can just open up another NodeXL. Is there? So what we're going to be able to do is have a little slider, and it's going to say date 0, date n, and you're going to have a little slider, and you'll be able to move that across, and the screen will change based on what that filter is. But we're in the middle of too much stuff.
Similar to the dynamic graph of the Gaphy, the kind of features you can slide.
Gaphy actually is doing animation, and it's doing continuous re-layout of the graph. A lot of people do continuous re-layout of their graph. I'm not one of them. I really believe, first of all, it's computationally expensive. It is egregious from a user interface design perspective. It delivers zero data except, ooh, jiggle, jiggle. And so, frankly, I don't believe you should show a user that. And we don't. So we settle the graph to its proper layout, we lay it out, we draw the graph. And so would you like to see it evolve over time? You have to sort of drag the slider. Gephi has GEXIF, the GEXF file format, and that allows for streaming edges, and we do not have that. So let's see. So we have so let's go back to the top. So the big message here is that if you use Graph Gallery as a shopping cart, you can grab recipes, you can apply it to your own NodeXL, you can then let it, and it's about halfway, I really should have taken a smaller data set. It will then automate, in fact, I think it makes better sense. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to knock it down to 1,000 and it'll be done in 24. Okay, so let's do that. Import. Let's open it several. So we're just going to import from Twitter Search Network. And let me just walk you through quickly some of your other choices. Facebook fan pages and groups, Flickr tag and user networks, the Twitter search and user network importer, and I'll explain the difference in a moment, and the YouTube user and video network importer. So in Twitter, you can give Twitter a word, it'll give you tweets. And that's our search importer. Start with words, you get tweets. From tweets, you get relationships between people. We also have the Twitter users importer. This could also be perhaps named the list importer. And it says, give me a list of names, I get their tweets, and then I find their connections. And so it's just the reverse order of how we do it. You start with a word, you get the tweets, you get the people. You start with the people, you get the tweets, you get their connections. So what we will do for a quick demo is to look at the search network here, and it was Clinton Global International IU, was it? Yeah, 2017. Let's knock that down to a mere 1,000, and that'll go really. And then we'll apply the recipe and see it kind of. It won't be a big graph, but it'll be a graph. So that should be 5 pages and 10 pages. Social science, not good enough. So that's going to chew along. We're going to get data will show up in the edges worksheet. It's going to be the parsed version of the tweets. One tweet could be more than one edge. So a tweet that says at your name, did you see the tweet from at their name, .. something, 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 that's going to have two edges. That's a reply to one person and a mention of another. And we're going to represent that as two rows in the edges worksheet. And so a single tweet could conceivably be 5 edges, maybe more. Depends on how many names you can squeeze into 180 characters. And so we will then produce all those edges. Then the next step is you got to calculate things on them. And so we're going to run them through our network metric engine. The engine that we use is Snap, the Stanford Network Analysis Platform at snap.stanford.edu. It's Yuri Leskovich's C++ library. And so in many ways, NodeXL is just the GUI over Snap. But how many C++ developers are in the room? All right, call me. Yeah, not many, right? So that's why we're the GUI over the C++ library. Okay, so it just said we're done, and I'll say yes, go ahead, bring me your data. And if all went well, automation was already automated. So in other words, you can actually tell it that when your data's done, go ahead and do automation, but I'm not sure if we can. We'll see in just a moment. So there you go. It's going to be loading the edges into the edges worksheet. You end up with a bunch of worksheets, one tab for each dimension of the data. And see, we did not get automate to automate. So let's take a look. The recipe was not saved as the default. So I will bring it in here. I'm going to hit this button. Use current for new. This says that recipe that I just downloaded, that's going to just be the default recipe from now on. Okay. And now when I go to automate, you're going to see that all those checkboxes have been checked. And all I have to do is turn this on and hit run. And there you go. It's going to find any important missing tweets, count and merge duplicate edges, group by cluster, calculate graph metrics, autofill the columns, build subgraph images, draw the graph, save it to the disk, write an image file, upload it to the graph gallery, send you an email, write you a PowerPoint, and then upload it to Polynode. At no point will it make coffee. This is a problem. We will eventually fix. There'll be the coffee USB interface for NodeXL. So at no point will my fingers leave my hands. This thing does it by itself, including emailing me when it's done. And so if you wanted to, you could set up NodeXL to kick off every hour on the hour all night, wake up and have the 10 maps for the 10 topics that you're monitoring for your dissertation. It could be on your phone at 6 a.m. And so, and we do this because clients need to know, hey, you know, the people talking about me, is there some new person who's now prominent and in the center of that graph? I need to see that before I discover that that person is angry at us, or maybe they are somebody who is a new brand champion. We want to go out there and engage that person. So here it is, it's calculating eigenvector centralities. It's a belief in Silicon Valley that if you can be overheard saying eigenvector by a venture capitalist, somebody will fund you right there. So come to a Starbucks, say, I'd like a Venti latte and an eigenvector centrality, and see how it goes for you. And now it's inserting those network metrics into the workbook, and all of these steps go on, all of them automatically, and when it's done, we're going to get a graph, we're going to get a report, and it will be up in the graph gallery. So, while it does that, perhaps there are some questions, and then we'll, oh yeah, go ahead.
So you said it stops at, and I've never used this before, so maybe this is a simple thing that everyone else knows the answer to, but it stops at 18,000 tweets, so is it do the most recent?
Yeah,
or the
from now going backwards. And you have to work with commercial data providers if you want more. Now, you do have one alternative, and that is you've taken 18,000, and then you do it again.
Right.
You do it again, and again, and again, and again, and that can work. And we have a way of doing it from the desktop where it's just going to wake up, do it, and take a slice. But what people end up doing is they end up with a directory filled with slices. And they say, I'd like some bread glue. I want to make a loaf. And we say, don't glue data sets back together. It's really dangerous. You're going to break something. Instead, if you had given us the list of those queries, we'd have put them on this cloud server, and then you get one big, unique, you know, it's pristine, because when you shove it into the database will let duplicates appear, so you're clean. And then it just comes straight down into NodeXL using one of the importers, which you have to go and get. That's an add-in. You put that importer in, you get the connected action graph server add-in, and you get that. So that addresses some of the duration issues, because they are good.
Do you have a sense, based if we were to set up this sort of regular sampling that where we do 10 times, do you have a sense of how much coverage we get of all the total tweets?
Yeah, so the faster the topic, the less you will get, right? So if it's World Cup and there's 6,000 tweets per second, they will give you a query result set of 500 tweets. Because they're in, some, at least my interpretation, because it's a black box on the other side, right? We don't know. But my interpretation is volume is bad, brace for impact. And so Twitter is saying, oh my God, 6,000 tweets, there's no way I can really do all the analysis of this in time. So I'm going to slice off the 600, 500 thread heads of the fast moving trees. I'm going to hand them to you and figure close enough, we're done. Because after all, if they actually did what we wanted them to do, they're going to deliver a data set of 600,000 rows to me for 10 minutes of World Cup tweets. I just don't think you can't push that much data over the wire. It costs them money to do it, and there's no revenue model. So I give it up to the Twitter people. They're not bad. They're just capitalists, right? You know, this is a profit-making business. But while the other one's chewing, I do want to show you this feature in progress, which, no, that's not it. We are working on this feature we call paths, and paths pivots your graph in such a way that it is not going to look pretty, but we're not done yet. What we've done, and this is people talking about Kentucky Fried Chicken. Each tweet is a dot. If it's the first tweet in a chain of tweets, it's a dot in the top row. The dots on the top row are ordered by the date that they were created. So oldest, newest. If your tweet got a reply, it goes in the second generation. And if there are multiple replies, you'll see multiples in the same generation. And then if that got a reply and so on, it goes down. And so average tweet depth, 1.1, right? Next is 2, 3. A depth of 15 or 18 is unheard of. So this long chain, that's really an object of interest. And so in NodeXL, there is now the ability to calculate path metrics. We will go through, we'll do this for you. This is now just another layout in the layout menu. There's the path layout. Usually we use the Harold Karin layout, but you can switch to this, and if you have calculated paths, you'll get this. And this, of course, is about diffusion. This is about how did these things spread. And soon you'll be able to kind of mouse over them, and they're going to tell you what the tweet was and who it was. But this is our step to help NodeXL address some of the obviously very public concerns about the diffusion not only of information but misinformation. We are very interested in this concept, apparently, of fake news. I am personally dubious about fake news because if you're somewhat to the left, the New York Times did, it kind of is fake news. Capitalism's still working. Not true, right? Fake news. So the idea of determining the truth and the falsity of things as a postmodern, post-enlightenment kind of guy, I don't really believe that you can tell the difference between true and false anymore. But I do believe that we can calculate provenance. Where did that come from? When did I get, who told me that Cory Booker was taking Goldman Sachs money? Somebody told me that. Who? And who told them? And who told them? Well, I think the answer to that is up that chain. And so we don't think that we're going to help you separate truth from falsity. But we are going to try to help you answer the question, where did my information come from? So I'm very impressed with the work of Zeynep Tufekci, who has been writing recently about the idea that we need to think about our information diet the way that we think about our diet, our food diet. And that if you find yourself, as I have, in the middle of a video watching people make perfect melon balls, and you think to yourself, why am I watching this video? And your brain says, but it's really cool. And you have to ask yourself, these are the jelly donuts of information. These are the Milky Ways of information. This is not the leafy green vegetables of information. And so maybe we can start to get a sense of what are we eating in our diet. And I'll note, none of the platforms seem to allow you to adjust the kinds of food groups that you're getting because they are optimized towards candy. Whatever will get you to snack more, they optimize for. And my God, these videos I find almost now, hypnotically compelling. I mean, the food, the ones where they're the two hands and they're making something. What are they gonna make? I don't know. So that kind of thing is exciting, but that doesn't mean that it's good for me. So here, we've done the CGIU 2017 map. It's been produced. I guess the only thing I like to do is to sort the between the centralities, and that way we're going to see the most central people come to the top. But if all went well, this also was automatically, there it is. If all has gone well, it should be the #1 map on the runway over on Graph Gallery. And it didn't make it for me, that's unfortunate. Okay, so let's go make it go there. It may be that you don't have my the username and password for the account. That explains it. So I will show you what it takes to go in there and upload it. We'll do the export to Graph Gallery. You can see we drew the graph. We scaled it. We labeled it. We did the content analysis. And in the spreadsheet, when it returns, you're going to be able to see the rank ordered list of people by betweenness. And we're going to be able to also, if we navigate through the rest of the workbook when we get to see it, there's a time series chart in there. There's a word and word pairs list in there. There's the hashtag rank ordered list in there. So all of that data is in there. It just also gets presented to you as a web page. It's also worth noting that we can export it to, we can export to PowerPoint. You're thinking PowerPoint? Business decision makers, which is to say people with checkbooks, only consume information in two ways, and that is email and PowerPoint. And if you can't get to them through those two channels, you don't get the check. And so we got both of those covered. We can email the report to somebody or we can send them the PowerPoint. So here's the graph. And then under here, we've got all of the summary statistics. We've got the word list, the word pairs list, the top items. I guess time series didn't get turned on, but we can have a time series. And then over here, these are the edges. So here, NYCLADI mentions Chelsea Clinton because the tweet is retweet Clinton Foundation in that long list of names, and there's Chelsea Clinton, and that creates a mention link between the author and Chelsea. And there let's see. We want to upload that. That's what we want to do. So export to Graph Gallery, and that explains it. It's, okay. So it's now going to upload that to Graph Gallery, and I guess we didn't title it properly, but it'll have normally it'll title itself, and then it will go to Graph Gallery, and we'll be able to navigate through that report just by looking at it on our tablet, on phone, or on a web browser. The intent is that this helps you then navigate. You're going to target certain people. You're going to be tracking certain content. You might go to different websites as a result. You might buy advertising on different websites as a result. It's a very different approach than the Google will take. It wants you to bring a very big check and then put your ad everywhere. We suggest that you go to put an ad in front of the place that people who are talking about you are already. So, that uploaded, so let's see. There it is. Okay. So there's the graph. This was only 1,000 tweets, but you could have done it with the 18,000 tweets, and you could have repeated it over and over and had 100,000 tweets of Clinton Foundation discussion, and we would know who the mayor is. We would know about all the various clusters. We'd know if there were any detractors. We also have a sentiment feature, which I guess I can quickly just show you here in Graph Metrics. We have the word and word pairs feature. And if you hit options on it, you're going to see that we've got 3 lists of words. You may certainly edit that list. I guess I should note I have a very negative sentiment about sentiment. We built a feature that we think gets above the threshold of ridiculous nonsense, which I think is where a lot of sentiment sits below. So why are we different? You get to make up the words. You get to change their names. Positive and negative are not the only 2 categories that are meaningful in human societies. If you're doing automotive, you might do economy, safety, and performance instead, right? And then essentially what we do is we count the incidence of these words from each of the 3 lists at the 4 basic resolutions of a network, which is the edge, the vertex, the group, and the graph. And so you get your content summarized at those resolutions, which you get to see here in the word pairs worksheet. And the neat thing about the word pairs worksheet, notice what word 1 and word 2 also resemble. Vertices. And it's really easy to open up another NodeXL and then import from an existing NodeXL workbook. And so long as you have tuned it to the word pairs page or worksheet, it will read that and say, oh, I see word 1 and word 2. We can easily bring them in and put them into a new graph, and we will see then not a social but a semantic. So I think that's about right? Any other questions, queries, comments? Yes, sir.
What does the Facebook API interface do, given that Facebook's super restrictive about this data?
Yeah. It is mostly focused on fan pages and groups.
Okay.
And you can get quite a bit of data about fan pages and groups. You just don't get a lot of data about the people in the fan pages of the group. So you get whatever their public attributes are, and that's fine. But you do get the, and we have a variety of methods. There's the user network, post network, and this is an older version of the client because we've got a new network in here called the page network. So pages can like each other. And so now you can see, it's very interesting, you really see the institutional landscape. If I go to the Chamber of Commerce of Omaha, Nebraska and say, who does it like? And who do they like? And who do they like? What you get is the institutional network of Omaha, Nebraska. Pretty quick.
Okay, so we say user network. What do you mean by that?
A user network it creates an edge between any 2 people who engage in these various behaviors. Like, I liked what you like, commented on what you commented on. I commented on what you commented on, but my comment was right after your comment. That's the consecutive commenters edge. Because unfortunately in Facebook there is no in reply to field. It's not there. So we do what we can. So if you tag the same thing, if you like the same thing, if you comment the same thing, if you comment after me, we get an edge. And then you do that by post number, by date, and then we've got this nifty thing that lets you not get killed by the 15 million comments to that one thread. So
yeah. So it's for using Facebook in a Twitter-like way.
Yeah, I mean, well, if only because the Z-Man he taketh.
Yeah.
This broke. This was great. People love this. This is the greatest undergraduate education network science tool on earth. It's you and your graph.
Yeah.
And Mr. Zuckerberg has an interesting legal theory that need not be defended. And that theory is, that's not your graph. Really, sir? Whose is it? It's your friend's graph. Well, I have friends. No, it's not theirs either. Well, whose is it? It's mine. Right? Who owns the graph? The Z-Man. All right. So this used to work. It doesn't work anymore. It's Zuckerberg's world. We just live in it. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Which is the maximum number of nodes and names that you can handle, because we know majority of the caskets are quite small, but some are really huge.
Yeah, potentially. Definitely bounded by machine resources. So let's just start with 8 gigabytes, 15,000 edges. 16 gigabytes, 120,000 edges. 32 gigabytes, we've gotten as high as about 280,000 edges. It's not going to be fast. Right? So we are definitely driven by ease of use and the small worlds theory, which says, bigger than 45,000 nodes is really big. And most human societies don't really cohere above that size. How many members of the American Sociological Association are there? There are 14,000 American sociologists. And the American Chemical Society is the largest society in America with 175,000 people. But talk to a chemist, you know what they say? Well, organic or inorganic. And they immediately bifurcate, right? So really, human institutions can't get that big. And it's like, okay, IBM is 500,000 people, the United States Army is 1.5 million people, and yeah, great, but the first thing they'll say is, what's a vision? So human institutions collapse to this sort of small world size, and laptops today are, almost there. They're almost there. You can do a lot. If you've got 100,000 or fewer edges, I think we're good for you. More than that, you want a Hadoop cluster, and you want a server farm.
Yeah, of course, some organizational structures are quite small because of constraint to the data byte number. But for the cascade, the information spread over the network can really.
You might need a larger perspective to see some phenomena that grow above a certain threshold size, and that's true. And so you might consider this to be like a camera that has only a certain shutter speed. And we only go to a certain speed, and certain events happen faster than the shutter can capture. That's true. But time will pass, and Microsoft's not sitting still. Excel is turning into the equivalent of a web browser for SQL. And so they are not saying, oh, well, that's what spreadsheets are, and they'll always be that way. There is competition, and Excel went from 64,000 rows to 1 million rows to it is now, there is no limit except your machines. So, all right. Well, thank you for the question.
So I think you have to be somewhere else shortly, yes.
Let's see, it's 4.
Okay.
So I'm good till 4. If you want to chat, I'm
If you want to linger and chat, sounds like Mark is willing to stay for a few minutes. For those of you who are here as part of a class, there was an attendance sheet circulating, so make sure that makes its way back to me with your names on it. And let's all thank Mark for showing up.